Okay, so we all think we know Santa Claus, right? The jolly man, the red suit, the symbol of Christmas cheer. But what if I told you the real story is so much bigger? The figure we know today, he's really just a modern mask on a face that is ancient, mysterious, and in some ways truly bizarre. So today, we're going to unwrap the secret origins of Santa.
Let's just dive right in. What we see, what we know, is the familiar, commercialized icon. But what's hidden just beneath the surface is the reality, a story that weaves together a Christian saint, a powerful pagan god, and an ancient winter spirit. Yeah, that man in the red suit is just the very tip of a massive, ancient iceberg of myth.
So here's the main idea, right up front. Santa Claus wasn't just invented, he evolved. He's what we call a composite figure, a myth built layer by layer over nearly 2,000 years, shaped by saints and gods, poets, artists, merchants, and even by us right now.
And really, the best way to understand him is to peel back all those layers one by one. So we're going to travel backward in time. We'll start with the Santa we all know, the American icon. Then, we'll jump back to explore his much older European ancestors. From there, we'll uncover the real historical saint at the core of it all. And finally, we'll tackle the biggest question: why does this myth still have such a powerful hold on us?
All right, our journey begins in a place you might not expect, 19th century America. Because believe it or not, this is where all those scattered ancient pieces of the legend were finally pulled together and forged into the single powerful image of Santa Claus that we all recognize today. What's really incredible here is just how fast this transformation happened. At the start of the 1800s, a lot of American communities saw Christmas as this rowdy, drunken party that you'd probably want to avoid. But then, just a few decades later, thanks to one poem and some iconic drawings, the entire holiday was basically reinvented around a new, family-friendly hero. And it's just an amazing example of the power of a single story. That 1823 poem, the one we all know now as "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," it performed a complete character makeover. It took the old image of the stern, serious bishop and swapped it out for a jolly old elf. He became magical, non-threatening, a friendly gift giver. Almost every key detail we associate with Santa today, it comes directly from this one poem. It's basically the modern blueprint. But, of course, the American Santa wasn't created out of thin air. So now we're going to jump back across the Atlantic and much further into the past to find the European ancestors he was based on. And let me tell you, this is where the story gets really wild. So meet Sinterklaas. When Dutch settlers came to the New World, specifically to what was then New Amsterdam, now New York, they brought their version of St. Nicholas with them. And just look at the connections. He judges kids' behavior, he travels over rooftops, and then there's the name itself. Just say it out loud, Sinterklaas. It's such a tiny leap from there to Santa Claus. He's the missing link. He is the direct bridge from the old world to the new. Okay, but wait a second. This brings up a huge question. St. Nicholas was a generous bishop, for sure, but he wasn't a wizard. He couldn't fly. He didn't have some supernatural knowledge of what every child on Earth was up to. So where did those parts of the story come from? Well, for that answer, we have to go even deeper, beyond Christianity and into the pagan world. Okay, just take a look at this. The similarities between the Norse god Odin and our modern Santa Claus are absolutely stunning. I mean, a long white beard? Check. Riding across the winter sky at the solstice? Check. Rewarding the worthy? Check. Children would even leave food for Odin's eight-legged horse, Sleipnir. Does that sound familiar? You see, as Christianity spread across Europe, Odin's story didn't just vanish. Its most powerful parts were absorbed, grafting the magic of a god onto the story of a saint. But the connection goes even deeper than just one god. Think about it. In ancient cultures, winter was this magical, kind of dangerous time. The veil between our world and the spirit world was thought to be thin, and many believed a visitor would come, a spirit, maybe an ancestor, who fit a very specific pattern. They'd arrive at night, be unseen, cross the threshold into your home, leave a gift, and then vanish before sunrise. Santa Claus fits this ancient archetype perfectly. He isn't just a saint or a god, he's a winter spirit.
And now our journey back in time reaches its final stop. We've peeled away the American icon, the Norse god, the winter spirit. We have finally arrived at the very beginning, the single historical person from which this entire sprawling myth first grew.
And whoa, the contrast could not be more stark. On the left, you've got the Santa we all know and love. And on the right, well, that's the man he was based on, St. Nicholas of Myra, a Greek bishop who lived in the late 3rd century in what is now Turkey. He wasn't jolly, he wasn't rotund. He was a thin, serious, religious figure.
So, why this guy? What did this specific bishop do to spark a legend that has lasted for 1,700 years? It really all comes down to these three core traits, the historical bedrock of the entire myth: his incredible generosity, his reputation as a fierce protector of children, and maybe most important of all, his insistence on giving gifts in secret, without any desire for credit.
And this right here is the most famous story about him. A poor man had 3 daughters, and he couldn't afford dowries for them, which back then was a terrible fate. So Nicholas, under the cover of darkness, secretly threw bags of gold into their house to save them. And legend says the gold just happened to land in stockings that were hanging by the fire to dry. Just think about that. That single secret act of kindness by a bishop in the 3rd century is the direct origin of hanging stockings on Christmas Eve. Amazing.
So we've completely deconstructed Santa Claus. We've taken him apart, piece by piece, layer by layer. Now let's put him back together and ask the most important question of all. Why? Why has this strange composite figure not only survived, but actually thrived for centuries? So let's do a quick recap of the layers we've uncovered. At the very center, the historical core. You've got the saint, who gives us generosity. Wrapped around that is the power of the pagan god giving him flight in his all-knowing nature. Then you layer on the mystery of the winter spirit, a visitor from another world. And finally, the whole package is presented to us as the American icon, a symbol of family, magic, and childhood wonder. You know, a character this complex and this adaptable doesn't survive for 2,000 years by accident. He endures because he taps into something fundamental within us. It makes you realize the story of Santa Claus isn't really for children at all. It's a story for all of us, and it addresses these deep and universal human needs. I mean, when you really think about it, what is this story about at its heart? It's about finding light in the literal darkness of winter. It's about practicing generosity when times are tough and resources are scarce. It champions this radical idea of kindness just for its own sake, with no expectation of reward. When you strip everything else away, it's a story about hope. And that brings us to the most important point of all. Maybe we've been asking the wrong question this whole time. Maybe the question isn't, is Santa real? You see, he's not a lie we tell to children. He is a living myth, a powerful story our civilization tells itself about the values it wants to believe in. And that's where we'll leave it. Because when you truly look at this incredible composite figure, part saint, part god, part spirit, part American icon, the question stops being, who is Santa? The much more interesting question becomes, what does our belief in him say about us? What hopes and values are we trying to keep alive through his story year after year? Thank you for watching.